Now, you mentioned Gargano training you and everything, and leading to this interview, because we've seen all the stuff after the CM Punk Colt Cabana endorsement, and I was just jumping on YouTube to get some other videos from you, and one of them I see is when Gargano beat the holy hell out of you.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about this, but can you bring us back to that day and how everything played out, and how you were afterwards?
Yeah. Basically, it's so weird because at least in Cleveland wrestling, the whole Johnny Gargano Greg Iron thing is something people still kind of bring up, especially with that video. That video got a lot of publicity. The whole angle when we started it was kind of based off of a real life concussion that I got by a guy who was in WWE for a second, and he wasn't good. He's not there now, so there's a reason for that. But he basically gave me a real concussion in a battle royal in 2007, where I was dropped on my head 3 or 4 times. Another guy dropped me on my head once or twice, and long story short, couldn't remember where I was, who I was repeating stuff. They eventually took me to the hospital, and I had a concussion with brain bleeding. And once we found that out, the doctor, the bleeding stopped somehow. I don't know how, but it stopped. And they told me if it wouldn't have, they would have had to cut my skull open and put a sponge on my brain. And, if I wouldn't have been taken to the hospital that night, I would have died in my sleep. So right after that, 2 months when I came back, my first match back was with Johnny Gargano on the brand new PWO show. The promotion had just started. I got this upset victory over Johnny Gargano, and it was kind of in a sense, it was life imitating art, because now all of a sudden we're playing up the storyline where I'm potentially wrestling with post-concussion syndrome, and I've come back too soon, and I got this victory over Johnny Gargano, who in real life, me and Johnny are very close friends, and obviously we were training together and stuff, and so we knew each other maybe too well. So everything we did in the story leading up to that video, it felt real. The promos, everything, because we knew our real life situations. Here's this guy, Johnny Gargano, who his whole life he's been around wrestling, and he's better than he should be for his age. He's good looking. He's got a great physique. He's cocky. All these big factors. He knows he's a man, and here comes this crippled, short, ugly, handicapped kid, and he gets this upset victory over him. And Johnny Gargano, when he was a kid, he was an insecure kid. So now all of a sudden, this loss has brought upon all those insecurities that he used to have, that he still holds deep inside, but he hides because of his good looks and his charisma and his athletic ability. And basically, after a few months of this eating away inside of him and me costing him a few more victories, it reaches the boiling point. And I was wrestling a match against Jimmy DeMarco. He comes out there, he attacks me with a chair, gives me uniquely into the apron on the outside, and then he rams me into the barricades. And that was actually an idea we came up with. I believe we might have seen Awesome Kong do it to Daisy Hayes one time, I think. I think that's where we came up with it. We saw her get wheelbarrowed into it once. And I kind of looked at it, and I was like, man, you know what would be cool? If we just go between the barricades, and you just do that over and over and over again. And I think that'll get a good reaction. And it got such a good reaction that we had to take a brief intermission after that happened. People thought I was really messed up. There was a doctor in the crowd, and he wanted to come backstage and check on me, and people went outside waiting for an ambulance to show up that obviously never showed up. I was in the back eating hot dogs, and everything was great. But the thing about that was, and I don't think that happened, especially we were such a small independent promotion back then, PWO was, and I don't think enough independent promotions still bring that sense of realism. And I'm very proud of the fact that, at least for that one moment, we were able to bring realism back to wrestling for a second, to where we were able to blur that line between reality and fiction. People were like, wow, everything else on the show, obviously that's staged or predetermined, but I'm pretty sure that was real right there. He really just brutally assaulted him. He doesn't like that guy. So the whole storyline, it felt real. And when it feels real to the two guys that are involved in it, chances are it feels real to everybody else. I think in general, when you bring that sense of realism, people can get behind the story and the matches and the angle a lot more.
I mean, yeah, from watching the videos, like everybody kind of thought it was just so violent that I can see why people were probably in the back waiting to see if you were okay and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
But you Gargano, he's one of those guys that, you know, the future is so bright. How soon do you think possibly for him to possibly be in the WWE? Because I think that's everybody's ultimate dream.
You know what? I honestly, God, and I told this to Johnny for at least a good year. I think anytime he wants, he could be in WWE or TNA. But the bottom line is, Johnny has a lot of patience, and as good as Johnny is, Johnny still thinks he can be better. And I think he's finding his time for that right moment, that right opportunity. And Gargano, he's very hard on himself and his ability. But the bottom line is, and he might not realize it, but he's probably the best ever to come out of the Midwest. And I'm not just saying that because I'm his friend. I've worked with the guy. I've seen what he does. He's always coming up with something new. He's got the look. He's good looking. He's athletic. He's like a mixture of Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. And I don't think you can have a better mixture of two guys in the history of wrestling. So I think anytime Gargano wants, whenever that he feels the time is right, he's going to get signed by WWE and he's going to go right to the top.
Okay, and you talk about timing is of the essence, and with the WWE, yourself, timing of the essence with the WWE. I saw where you said with the cerebral palsy, it's okay, now, but if you're 30, 40 wrestling with it, maybe not so okay.
Yeah.
But the timing of CM Punk's, his endorsement, Colt Cabana, all in there, do you think that the WWE missed the ball? And if you want to be politically correct, okay. But by not pulling you two guys along with him, I know you're a big WWE fan. They've been hinting at a stable for Nash and the Clique coming back before his firing. But why not a stable for CM Punk with the guys that the WWE thought that could not make it there? They let go CM Punk, and then of course use the cerebral palsy in your branding of yourself as well. Do you think they missed the boat?
You know what? I still think, in a way, like obviously if something were to happen the next week or 2 weeks later after it happened, obviously it would have been a lot hotter. But I still think that I have a lot of momentum. And honestly, I've made a lot of contacts because of that. And I still feel like the story is sort of fresh. It's only been, a month and a half now. I think it's inevitable that Colt's going to get signed because Colt just has that talent and that it factor. And, there's the old saying that the cream eventually rises to the top. And, if you have talent, eventually someone's going to see it. And I think that's the case with Colt. I can't really say why, he was let go the first time around because, Cabana isn't just a great character. He's a great wrestler, and I think a lot of people oftentimes overlook that part of him because he's so funny and he's so likable, and he has such a hilarious character at times that you forget that he is an actual great wrestler, a very well-rounded wrestler. So I think eventually, inevitably, Colt's going to get signed. Me, I'm still just trying to work hard and prove that I belong. I've got some big things in the works, kind of, and in the next couple of weeks, a guy from Sports Illustrated actually is coming from New York to do a story about me over the weekend for PWO in Chicago that weekend. So, I don't really follow actual sports. I haven't in a long time, but I guess being in Sports Illustrated is a big deal. And I guess they don't cover professional wrestling in depth that often. So I guess for a professional wrestler on an independent circuit to have hopefully what's a featured story in Sports Illustrated, the guy spending 3 days with me, it can only help me. I've got to think someone's got to take notice of that. And like I said in the interview online, I'm 24 years old right now. I'm not getting any younger. I still feel like I have a few good years where the character is still fresh. But the bottom line is, it goes back to what I say. I love wrestling, but I'm just very worried that, if I was a wrestling fan and I was watching a guy with cerebral palsy who was, 30 or 35 years old, maybe it's just my own insecurities or what it is, but I don't know if I would buy into it as much as if the kid was, 24 or 25 or 26. Once it gets to a certain age, it's like, geez, this old guy with cerebral palsy, like why would they sign that guy? Or the more I don't want to say childlike, but I guess the younger you are, the more the character works. I guess just look at it like this. If that guy would have got signed when he was 35 years old, would people have got behind it as much? He was 19, so it was more, he had that young look. It was more like he was a kid. And I guess in my mind, that's the way the story kind of has to be played out.
Okay. Well,
you claim that you're not a big sports guy and everything, and I believe you consider yourself a nerd. What about you is nerdy?
I guess there's a lot of nerdy things about me. Obviously, I like wrestling, which for the most part isn't socially acceptable by regular people. I own, hundreds of DVDs. I love to collect wrestling DVDs and wrestling memorabilia. If I had more money, I would probably squander it all on random old WWF stuff from like the 80s and 90s. I used to love comic books. I have a fairly decent collection of comic books. I don't follow them as much as I did when I was a kid, but I still held on to all the comic books as a kid. And I love to play old video games a lot. Really weird. Like I don't really play anything recent, like PS3, Xbox 360. I'm not down with that stuff, man. I got like a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo and a Sega and a 64, and I will just play that all day long. In fact, I have to stop myself sometimes because, if I sit there, I was always regulated to playing for like an hour when I was a kid, and my dad would kick me off. So now that I'm an adult, I can just sit there all day and play Nintendo, and no one can stop me. So I have to kind of tell myself, okay, you can only sit here and play Mega Man for like an hour and a half, and then you got to go do something else, Greg, or else you're going to be here all day. I think I'm just a weird guy in general.
What's your, because everybody's got their own method with the Nintendo. What's your method with the Nintendo when you got to blow it and put it in?
Luckily, my Super Nintendo, obviously that's kind of old, and it works fairly decent. You got to do the old blow and put it in, and then if that doesn't work, you have to kind of blow in the system. But actually, I don't have an original Nintendo. I have one of those re-released ones that is only like 4 or 5 years old, where it's really small and you just put the cartridge in the top, and so I never really have to blow in the games on that one. But sometimes the Super Nintendo is a pain. Like I'll sit there for 10 minutes before I can get some of the games to work, and it's just by the time I actually get the game working, I don't even want to play at that point.
Oh Lord.
That's awesome. Oh man. Now, are you doing anything? You talk about your condition and everything.
Yeah.
Is there any books in the future for you or anything like that?
What's the question?